I just got the thumbs up from Nate, which means we're rolling. Satya and I are back to talk about health, fitness, nutrition, and all things functional bodybuilding. Satya, tell me about how you put this outfit together, because it's on fire right now.
It's not on fire. Well, I gave up all legging options. Okay. So a lot of women in the gym, they're rocking the cute fits with the matching sets and the colors. And I'm like, I am just never going to wear anything other than black leggings. And after many, many experiments of different brands of leggings, I just have my go-to. Mm-hmm. So that decision is made for me. It's going to be the Athleta black leggings by default. No other option.
Right on.
Yeah. And then, you know, I've got my free gear on. I've got my free FBB tank top and my free Revival Strength hoodie with our Flying Philly on the back.
Let's be real. Nothing's free around here, okay? You worked hard for everything that's on your body.
I outsourced the design of this hoodie on Upwork, and I really sweated that. We did multiple revisions.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got my Stance socks, so...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of intention with every little part of this outfit. It's just not your typical, you know, high fashion kind of look.
I was just too tired after training. I've got my high fashion fit wadded up in my bag in my office downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel more on a level playing field with you now that you're in your cozies and I'm over here in my cozies.
I find it fascinating that like we often end up coordinating our outfits totally by accident. But like, aren't we kind of in similar colors today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a little bit more bright on top, but you know, you got the bright socks.
We're rocking the neutrals. Same wavelength.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch of people just listening to this. They
have no idea what we're wearing.
No idea. Head over to YouTube.
Trust us, we look so cute.
Check out this video cast on Functional Bodybuilding YouTube page. Just type in Functional Bodybuilding. It's the first account that'll show up.
You can watch me nod through the whole episode.
My popcorn's gone, but I was just crushing some popcorn before the show.
Yeah.
Well, today's topic is sort of like, you know, I've been having just such what I feel like are deep, honest connections with people through social media lately on Story. And I've just been so inspired by the vulnerability, the openness, the honesty that people share with me. And it's provoked a lot of deep thinking and questions, and then, you know, conversations that help me and all of us to realize, wow, there's this pattern amongst so many listeners or so many viewers or so many followers that they share. Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, we're having a big storm.
We're having a big storm, and it sounds like something is
like falling on the roof.
Like a gargoyle running around the roof right now.
Okay.
Nate is trying to reassure us that everything is fine.
Yeah.
This is normal. But there's a lot of similarities, a lot of commonalities out there amongst people. When we all stop pretending like life is perfect and life is good, and we just be like, hey, you know what? Let's be real. Like, this is a struggle most days for me.
Yeah.
And the struggle that got highlighted was I'm objectively in the best shape of my life, or I have come so far from where I started years ago. But the journey into fitness has made me more self-aware of all my imperfections than when I wasn't so into fitness and when I wasn't treating my body as well as I am now. Mm-hmm. So I used to wake up each day. Sure, I wasn't like stoked at being a little heavier or out of shape, but I generally didn't spend much time thinking about that in my life. It was just like, it didn't take up mental space. And now I've lost 15, 20 pounds in the last several years. I'm in shape. I have more defined muscles, but I'm now spending a lot of mental energy and devoting a lot of that mental resource and emotional resource that I have to spotting the thing on the one area on my body that isn't perfect or hasn't come as far. And I just obsess over my love handles every day. Or I look at myself in the mirror, and despite seeing my upper abs showing for the first time in my life, I just can't, I don't even see that. All I see is the belly fat that's over my lower abs. And, you know, these are the stories that have kind of poured in.
Yeah.
And I think it deserves attention, and I think it deserves, the topic deserves to be normalized, and like just understand that whether you're experiencing this or not, you might be on a journey to trying to discover a new, healthier version of yourself. And you've created like a story that when I get to here, I'm going to be happy. And that's the same story that many people have had for a long time. And when they realize that they get there, they're a little bit disappointed to find out that it's not all happiness and, you know, day-to-day self-love. It's more often than not self-hatred, shame, feelings like that come up.
Yeah. And we've watched so many people have transformations over the years, and there's so much emphasis on the journey, the goal, the progress, getting somewhere. And it's really not often discussed what happens when you actually get there and how to make a transition from the point where you really don't need to obsess over your progress photos anymore or stay attuned to the same types of numbers you may have been tracking really closely with your body composition up to a certain point. When you get to a certain point, it's probably not going to change that much. And so what happens? Like, how do you shift your mindset to have a new goal, have a new awareness, have a new understanding, and make a transition if you are stuck in that place of, I've gotten to where I thought I was going to go and it didn't necessarily fix everything. And now I'm spinning my wheels because I feel actually a little bit lost in this space.
Yeah. What was your analogy that you used before we got on?
Oh yeah, it was the dog who caught up to the car. It's like when the dog's chasing the car and then, you know, all of a sudden you're there and it's like, what the heck do I do now?
Yeah, the dog. It's like, wow, that bumper. I got to get to that bumper. I got to get to that bumper. Holy shit. I'm at the bumper and wow, that just hit me in the face. That really hurt.
Exactly. And I know that you've been through your own process with this, so it would be good to hear your experiences of like what happened when you got somewhere and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, most of my experiences of that in my life, and there have been many, have revolved around getting focused on the external, you know, like form that my body takes. Mm-hmm. I was always hard on myself because I wanted to keep improving in CrossFit. But when it was like performance was my focus, like I didn't wake up each day and just like have negative self-talk like, God, you can't do 15 muscle ups in a row. You suck. Like I felt driven and motivated by the desire to be better. And it was like a positive feeling versus like the periods of time in my life when I was really focused, or I focused more on body composition, then it's like kind of a short-lived period of time where it's like seeing progress, and then progress slows down, progress stalls, and kind of like chasing something that you can't quite get anymore. And in the process of like kind of pushing things further and further, all of these other benefits of health and fitness start to like die. Like energy starts to die. Strength starts to die.
Yeah.
Like libido. The list could really go on. And it is quite interesting to like see that very often the person that I talk to or that messages me that resonates with this this topic, somebody who's been chasing better body composition for a long time. They've been trying to lose body fat. They've been trying to get leaner. They've been just trying to lose weight, and they have been successful at that. And with each new layer of success that they get, the more they start to like hate what they see.
Yeah.
And I know it wasn't always like that. There was always, for most of those people, there was a period of like, whoa, I am crushing it. And then on the back end, when things slow down, or when they have their first 6-month period where they kind of regress, they lose, like, hey, I was 27% body fat and I got down to 12% body fat as a male. Mm-hmm. And I was like in the best shape of my life. And now they're back at 15 and they're like, ugh. Look at me. I'm just a slob. Like, I feel terrible. Look, I was so dialed back then.
Right.
Like, how do I get back to being dialed? I was like, you were not dialed when you were 27. You were doing all the wrong things for your health and longevity and wellness. And compare yourself at 15 to 27, not 15 to the 12 person. And what else were you giving up at 12? Why didn't you stay there? Well, because the list is long. It can be long.
Yeah.
And so it's like we asked the question, I think in a piece of content recently, was like, hey, if you're going to be on a weight loss journey, a fat loss journey, like start to think way ahead of time, like what's lean enough for you? What is enough? Because if you think about it now before you get there, it's a good thing because you can set an because by the time you get to that number, by the time you get there, you're going to want more.
Exactly.
It's just like the person's like, what's enough money to make? Like, I need $70,000 a year to be like happy. Mm-hmm. You get that job at $70K, adjust your lifestyle a little bit. Now you're like, God, I got to make 100. And then like, you chew up that, like you get the raise, you get me making 100K a year. You start to increase your lifestyle. You start to increase your spend. Fuck, I can't be happy unless I'm making 120. And like, it's just a never ending thing.
Of course.
And then at some point you're like, I finally got the 200K salary, but you just are working endlessly.
Yeah.
And your life just gets consumed. And you're like, well, this is just, you might spend a decade of your life in that cycle. And at the end of that decade, look back and have an awakening and be like, holy shit, like why did I do that? I just wasted so much of my life being obsessed over something that didn't bring me more happiness. It just brought me more pain. And yeah, gosh, I resonate with this so much on so many different layers of my health and fitness journey and life. But yeah, my story for sure is, pushing it too far on the body composition thing a couple times in my life, and, taking it beyond like that short-term satisfaction and rewriting my discipline code and feeling, like 6 months of like a leaning out phase. It's like, it's positive. It's like, wow, I'm changing my body. I feel really dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've, leveled up my discipline. Like I feel confident. Awesome. Like, okay. And then wrap that chapter up and just be like, that was a defined period.
Right.
And if you let it come back a couple percent or a few pounds, like that's okay. If like pushing yourself to this new low is going to take 10x the work. And then when you get there, if you peel back, just even 5%, you're going to feel like the whole world just opened up to you and you have so much more freedom. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly, like, that trade-off is so worth it. You pull back a little bit, maybe you put on a few pounds. You want to like do this story of like, man, I hate myself. I'm not as lean as I was. But if you focus on those, like, if you focus on it that way, you miss seeing like, oh my God, like look at all the things that it opens up to me to not be obsessing about my food and about my this and about my that every single moment of every single day.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that in my own experiences of times when I've been really dialed on nutrition and gotten really lean and felt strong and been in a really good training cycle. And then that always has an ending point. It never just goes on forever. And it's like, okay, great. The training cycle ended. I PR'd a lift, whatever. I'm looking lean. And then I'm like, okay, like I'm going to stop being so diligent about tracking every single macro, and I'm just going to enjoy some meals out and do whatever. And so I think for a lot of people, that is a point where there's a lot of fear that you're just going to go right back to the beginning and you're going to let all your discipline go and you're just going to like have a free for all, right? And all of a sudden it's all gone. And I think realistically, that does tend to happen for some people. That's like a very natural phenomenon of that yo-yo diet rebound situation. But I think for me, something I've really learned over time is kind of this like stair step phenomenon where you get to a certain point of being really dialed. And then like you say, you can pull back and you don't go all the way back. And it's like every time you go to that dialed in and pull back, dialed in and pull back, you pull back to a level that's better than one that you had previously.
Yeah.
And I feel like that sense of progress of I have redefined my foundation, because when I think back to what I used to do is eat an entire bag of Chex Mix every single afternoon. This is what I was doing when you and I first started working together. And now my, pulling back from being dialed in looks much, much different. It's much higher in protein. I have better lifestyle practices. I have better recovery practices.
Yeah.
But that progress kind of gets lost sometimes. And you just fixate on I'm not looking like I was, a month ago.
This is interesting because we have very different experience. I mean, there's similarities, and I can totally resonate with what you're saying. But you're talking about it from a perspective of like, I'm on this stair step journey of getting better and better and better over time, which I think a lot of people miss. I think they think, okay, I got to my best that I'll ever be, and then now I'm going back. I got to the best that I have ever been. I'm going backwards, and I have no proof in my life that I can do this multiple times, that I can return to that. And so they start to like kind of go into this, right? Like
it's over.
It's over. It's self-doubt. Like that was just this flash in the pan, lightning struck, and I don't know how to recreate that. You've had an experience of doing it several times and seeing that like, hey, each time I'm getting better and better. And that gives you the confidence to say, okay, well, it's good. This is the cycle of how things go. Like I go hard for 3 months and then I pull back for 2 months, and then I go hard for 2 months and I pull back for 2 months, and but you're never really pulling back to your origins.
Yeah.
It's like when you post the video of your snatch on Tuesday compared to 2017, it's like, oh yeah, like you can't go back to that. You've put in too much. You've changed the fabric of who you are and how you move. You're not ever going to snatch like that again. Now I'm thinking about that demo snatch I did earlier. I'm like, well, if you really take a good hiatus from the old snatch, you might get a little crusty and crunchy on some of those deep positions. Anyhow, stay focused. My experience at times was like that. Like, okay, I don't have to be dialed in all the time. I don't have to, like my CrossFit journey, for example. It's like, I don't have to be in peak games shape every year, because that's a phase. That's a period of the season. I need to get in great shape for the Open, and then I need to get in great shape for regionals, different type of condition, and I need to be in great condition for the games. But then between the games and the Open, like, I'm not supposed to be ready to compete. I'm supposed to be doing all things in my power to build up the base of fitness that's going to allow me to go in for another big peak.
Yeah.
Now it's like I've stair-stepped it so many times that I've reached or been really damn close to my genetic potential as like an athlete and as a body composition athlete, right? Like what I learned from that is I could be sad, like, oh, I'm over the hill. Like I can never PR another lift again in my life, or like, at 5'10", 182, 183 pounds, with the amount of muscle that I have and not on exogenous hormones, or really not able to train more than I train, like the reality of me putting on another 5-10 pounds of muscle is highly unlikely. I mean, let's just be honest. It's not going to happen. So I could say like, well, that makes me sad. It makes me, terribly like unhappy, but it actually doesn't, because I still love the pursuit of better.
Yeah.
And so that's what this is. It's the pursuit of better, and the magnitude of how much better you can get will slowly diminish over your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
You're just starting your journey. You can lose 30, 40 pounds in a couple of years, right? Don't expect to do that
Year
forever.
after year after year.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would just be, you'd eventually be
You'll be withered to nothing.
yeah, you'd be absent, right? And so like as you get closer to this potential that you have, the margins, or excuse me, the magnitude of the change starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And in order to make those changes that are like 0.5%, it requires requires more work than you did to make the first 20-pound weight loss.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that is where I have been at, where it's like, oh my gosh, like I look in the mirror, if I see something, I'm like, God, I want that to be better. Oh, I wish that would be better. Okay, I'm going to push harder. And it's like focusing on some of those attributes of myself that I don't love. And then it pushes me to do something like way outside of sustainable.
Yeah.
What I'm learning is that the trade-offs to do that for life are, I have a perspective on it now that I haven't had in a long time, where I'm like, oh, that's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Like, to get that little extra bit, to get that last, like, how do I lose that like last bit of body fat? Like, how do I like drop those love handles just a little bit more? Like, these are the questions I get frequently. It's like, how do I push my leanness a little bit further? Like, I'm a female. I just clocked in at 18% body fat. They send me a picture. They've got visible abs. Like, I'm really trying to like I want to keep recomping. And I'm like, I'm all for the pursuit of betterment, but now we're talking about physical betterment that takes an immense amount of investment of your time, energy, focus. And there's a lot more going on in life that can lead to fulfillment and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And like, back to the original question, it's like, and if you get 1% better on your scan and you see a little bit more muscle, you're not going to be happier. You're going to want another.
Yeah.
And another. And I just am like, it's almost, it's like having this kind of awakening in my life right now, where I'm like, man, yeah, I did a lot of that. I've done a lot of that in my life, where I've just really pushed boundaries, or pushed the boundaries, or pushed my threshold, in pursuit of something that was just like beyond exceptional. It's like, and it was really just for me, it was for nobody else. And then when I achieved it, like, it was like a flash of kind of satisfaction, and then like more
On
dissatisfaction.
To the next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's so many ways to relate to fitness, and the thing that I struggle with in sort of putting all of this into some final like bit of takeaway, for people or something like that, is that you can say like, yes, like the pursuit of fitness is for life, and it's something that if we want to be healthy, we need to stay engaged with in some way. And we can say that there are so many ways to pursue better aside from body composition, like having physical goals. Maybe you want to get a skill or get stronger in a particular area. And maybe there are ways that you can take your fitness and use that to go live, like take up a fun activity or go on a trip that you could never take if you weren't in great physical shape.
Yeah.
But the reason I hesitate a little bit is just that this issue is hard. And it's not like you can have a perspective shift and let go of that overnight. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's still worth having these conversations to just keep poking at that idea that getting that extra tiny bit has trade-offs.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily going to be everything you hoped and dreamed for.
Yeah. And I'm also hesitant to give like some like summary and parting words of wisdom, like this is how you manage this.
Yeah.
I love what you said about like there's so many ways to like measure or experience betterment, you know, and the physical performance aspect of fitness is something that I always come back to. It's like look good and move well. And it's like the move well was always the performance. It was always the part of the tagline that said, hey, perform and then look good, like achieve the body that makes you feel the most confident.
Mm-hmm.
And if you focus on looking good for too long, your performance is going to take a hit. And you're going to feel like, man, I'm not as confident in how my body can move and what I'm capable of. And so there's always like these other ways to point your focus in fitness to re-inspire you and re-engage you and get you back into a positive mindset. But I do think that one thought that has helped me is to, you know, become the observer of your own like thoughts.
Yeah.
Like each day it's easy to just be like, God, I hate what I see. I hate what I see. I hate what I see. And just like, then that either becomes like fuel for you to go and be more like disciplined, or maybe it's the thing that makes you go and binge eat or whatever. But like, you're just like only focused on that. It's like, if you took, I mean, and just as here's the visual, like imagine you have like your body, or like you have like this kind of spirit that like kind of it leaves your body and it just sort of like elevates like 10 stories up into the air. And it's now just looking at you. So your spirit is above you, just looking down on your life with no attachment, no connection, just very detached from your feelings, and it's just observing you. What would your spirit observe in you? Well, they would observe like, oh man, Marcus is like, look at him. He's doing all these things to try and be better, but he seems really unhappy a lot of the time. He's always critical of himself. He's like really bummed and he's got negative emotions. And then, I see these people coming into his life that want to connect with him, but he's distracted by what he's doing. And, you know, if you could observe yourself, would you say on the whole, your approach to health and fitness is having a positive impact on your life?
Yeah.
Or is it having a negative emotional impact on your life? Is it making you miss things that are right there for you now? Because you're pursuing a goal that you believe when you achieve it, life is going to be better. Mm-hmm. But there's life in front of you right now that could be so rich, and you're so distracted by what the story and the thoughts that are going on around what's not good about you. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like a question of, is how you're pursuing this thing making you feel good? Are the accounts that you're following on Instagram and social media and TikTok around fitness, are they making you feel good about how you're doing in fitness, or are they making you feel like I suck, like I'm not doing well? And is the one variable that you're hyper focused on, is that the variable that is to focus on that's helping you feel best? Or is it a variable that always makes you feel bad? Is lower abdominal belly fat like consistently 10 out of 10 times making you feel like shit? If it is, maybe consider changing what you focus on.
Yeah.
Pointing your focus towards something else.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but
Yeah.
it's, if you can see so clearly, like, this thing that I think all the time is so, it's just so damaging to me. And then the exercise I did with Tony Robbins was this. It was, see what this like belief system that you have is, and like really think about it hard. If you do this for the next year, every day, how are you going to feel in a year? And then if you keep doing that, if you keep staring at your lower abdominal fat and being pissed about it and angry and devastated and for the next 5 years, what's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to your loved ones? What's going to happen to your relationships? How is your work going to look like? What is all, like, look at all the ripple effects. How about if you did it for 10 more years and you didn't change this pattern? What would 10 years from now feel like? Who would you have lost? What would you have missed? What relationships would have suffered? What part of yourself would you have neglected? You know, and it's like you get out that far and you're like, holy shit, that is so not the life I want. I don't want it 10 years. I don't want it 5 years. I don't even want it a year from now. Why am I doing it today? And then you beat your chest and you walk on fire and you and you dance like a maniac.
Yeah.
And you just scream, and then that's how Tony did it.
I don't know if you've ever read the book The Untethered Soul, but it's a short book, but it's the best manual that I have read for helping you get outside of your thought bubble.
Love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I recommend.
Good recommendation to end on. And Satya, you nailed it. You crushed it today.
Oh, thanks.
Outfit, beanie, conversation, the depth. You guys are fortunate to have Satya on this show.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, everybody.